dreamt I saw you walking up a hillside in the snow, casting shadows on the winter sky as you stood there counting crows. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for girls, and 4 for boys. 5 for silver, 6 for gold, and 7 for a secret never to be told. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we get no applause from Lindsey Graham when we're wrapping up a show.
Yeah, we didn't want to invade 10 countries. That's why.
Well, we'll get into it. You foreshadowed that a little bit. That was, I thought, one of the great moments of that speech. But
I didn't really. I got to say, I couldn't. We'll get into this in a sec, but I couldn't stomach the State of the Disunion or the response. I just tuned out after a few minutes on each. I got a question.
Yeah.
I the song, I have no idea.
Okay.
It's Teenage Wasteland.
Oh, that would be great. The Who. Oh.
Who?
A Murder of One from Counting Crows.
Oh, I know them.
Yeah. Counting Crows. I love their first 2 albums, August and Everything After and Recovering the Satellite.
Well, I knew that.
I tell you.
What time period is that, Jay? Did those come out?
Mid-90s, isn't it? Yeah, mid-90s. But, I think Adam Duritz is a great lyricist. He has a really unique voice. I like that kind of thing. Some people don't like those really unique voices that have little quirks and stuff in them, but I love those.
I do too. Willie Nelson, one of my favorite country singers.
Our Lady Peace, Counting Crows, all that kind of stuff. I like that. But I think that he is probably one of the best lyricists. I don't know. I mean, I love like Elton John's lyrics. Bernie Taupin was his lyricist. Billy Joel had really good lyrics up until we couldn't start the fire, and then I couldn't stand the lyrics. So,
well, he had a hell of a run in the 70s and 80s, though. I mean,
he sure did.
How many have a 15-year run of good music? Boy, there's not many people who can say that.
My goodness. I mean, you look at the albums 52nd Street.
Do you think just
Glass Houses,
being a music guy yourself, do you think that is music kind of like writing a TV show or something where you just at some point your creative juices just aren't what they were? How do you make every album as good as your best? How do you like a guy like Billy Joel or Elton John, icons in the business, just set the bar higher every time they did something.
Right.
Do you get to the point where there's just no further you can go with it? I
don't know. I mean, you always try as an artist. Check that. Oftentimes as an artist, unless you're AC/DC, you try to evolve your sound and bring in new things, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Thing is, I think as
Vanilla Ice,
right? As your tastes mature, sometimes that's a good thing, and you bring in things that grow you as a musician. Sometimes not so much. Like, I think the death of Elton John was really the whole Lion King stuff, Circle of Life, and
again, 20 years into his run, but I mean. Does a guy like Billy Joel or Elton John go, look, I got to bring some new people around me. I've got to bring some new blood in here. I've got to.
Oh, yeah. Billy Joel was like
kind of like a coach who just, has to bring in, okay, I've had the same guys around me.
Well, some of them do that too. And some of them do it by switching out band members when you're the name on the marquee.
Well, right. Yeah.
You can do that. It's a little harder to do when you're like,
you're the Beatles and you've got royalties and you've got contracts.
You're not swapping guys out. You just go do solo records.
You don't trade for a guitar player to be named later.
Right. but like when you're doing band albums, and as a solo guy too, I mean, sometimes you test out different producers because that can change your sound some, and then you try these different producers, and then you want to recapture the magic from the early records, and you go back to your original producer. But there are some guys like the Beatles. I mean, they worked with pretty much the same guys all the way through. You had George Martin producing, and you had like Jeff Emmerich, who was the engineer on most of the Beatles stuff.
Shorter run for them, but yeah.
Shorter, but yet I would say more volume as far as recorded material.
Yeah,
they were putting out an album every 6 months.
Yeah, you didn't do one every 3 years.
No, it's every 6 months they did one, plus touring on top of it. I mean, they were busy. And so it makes you understand a little bit when they stopped touring around like Sgt. Pepper.
69, 70, right around
why
there.
they did that, yeah.
Oh, I totally can understand that. Here's the other thing, too. Back then, I mean, they were owed a lot of money, but touring was how they made ready money.
Yes.
I mean, you'd sell a tape and get the money for it 3 months later.
Yeah.
Because everybody had to get their cut. It was just, you think that. But, like, the stories I've read about Buddy Holly, for example.
Yeah.
Why did he go on tour when it was -20 out? Because he had money owed him.
Yeah.
He didn't have any money.
Yeah.
He had to go make it. He was making, $5,000 a show, which in 1959
a lot of money.
was.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but here's the thing, and I'll give you the short version. I mean, record companies have really forever stole from the artists. I mean,
you think?
The artist, they front the money to the artist for doing the recording and for making the product and for...
No, you know what happens? I don't mean to interrupt you, Jay, but the artist becomes an intellectual property that they own. That's largely what happens.
To a degree, that's true, because a lot of these artists get to sign to like 7 album deals, and the really good ones will fill all 7 albums, and the really bad ones they cut, and it's a tax write-off.
Yeah.
But what they do is they front the money for those albums, for the cassettes or the CDs or the records, for the marketing, for all of this stuff.
Assuming they're doing all that. I mean,
and they are in most cases, but then, or were, cassettes aren't, there may be a little more a thing than they used to for the nostalgia sake of it. But then there was what was called recoupment, where the artist had to pay all of that money back before they would ever see a red cent. There was no profit sharing. It all went to the record label until it was paid back, and then the artist could make money.
So it was like a loan. It was like a mobster, like a loan shark.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why so many of the artists die broke is because they couldn't put out the volume of hits that like the Beatles did.
Yeah.
Right. And
how many could? I mean, you're talking about a handful of people who are really, really successful. There's a whole bunch of people who had a couple hits and then went away or were. I mean, I could think of 500 examples if I sat here and thought about it.
Right. But royalties are split into a couple of different ways. You have artist royalties and you have published royalties.
Right.
So as the artist being a composer, as a composer-writer, you get half of the royalties. As a publisher, you get half of the royalties.
Right, but what if you're not a songwriter? That's another place. You're not in on that cut either.
You don't get that cut either. You get performance royalties. And those are a little different, but yeah, you don't get like all of the.
And I wonder how many of these artists getting signed have like representation or a real good attorney with them. Or now I think they do.
Yeah.
I bet 40 years ago it was like, oh my goodness.
There was
Capitol
a lot
Records.
of stealing.
Capitol Records is going to sign us, and they don't know what they're putting their name to.
Or you get a guy like the Colonel, right, who represents
Elvis.
Who made money hand over fist representing Elvis and owned him.
It was concert money and
and just stole from him and record label made out good. The Colonel made out good.
And Elvis dies in his shorts in his bathroom.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been a battle, but now it's totally different because when you sign with a label, because CD sales are down, because record sales are down, because
you could go around
people
these
can
labels
stream,
to a
they stream
degree.
instead of all of that. They have these 360 deals where now the record label gets a piece of touring. They get a piece of merchandise. They never used to get those. The artists did that all on their own. They would go do the touring. I mean, what does a label do to get when it comes to a tour?
The only thing they could do is help promote. That's
Right.
the only thing.
That's it.
But quite frankly, if you're a decent enough act, the record label, it sells itself.
But that's why, it's so important. If you can make it on your own, if you can be your own label, your own advocate, it's hard because there's a lot of inroads that you got to try and make. I'm going through that now. My album is on the national college radio charts, but to get it to go from radio and non-commercial stations to commercial, that's a big jump, and you got to have some deep pockets and some connected people to be able to make that jump, or you have to be getting millions of streams. Wow. So that they can't ignore you. I mean, that's really either or at this point.
Well, now have other artists, we should save this for a future show, Jay, but I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
Are there any artists that are doing that are knocking that door down, that are hitting those numbers that people can't, that have been able to succeed working around the old system?
Yeah, and some of them belonged to a label and then quit, let the contract run out or had their contract canceled or whatever, and then went and did their own thing, and the label, I will argue, helped build part of that audience that they have.
Sure.
But there are others, yes. I mean, take a look at that. Here's a recent example. Oliver Anthony, is that his name? Rich Men of Richmond. Put out a song on social media, and it took off. And now he's playing huge festivals. He's in recording.
Something just goes viral for whatever reason.
Yeah. So I mean that's one way to do it. And then you have people like, you've heard of Ani DeFranco, right?
Sure.
She built her own label from the ground up, and
she's been in the business for a long time.
She's been in the business a long time,
Since
but
the 90s,
but
right?
she worked hard.
Yeah.
And so there are people that do it. Every so often they're able to build a following, and I would say even in the early days, I mean, love her or hate her, Taylor Swift also was able to do that kind of thing. She knew how to connect with fans, and just by building a fan base, she was able to attract major label attention and finally got, signed to a major label. But I mean, she really built the machinery for it on her own beforehand. Now there are people that are totally just, hey, we're going to sign you. We'll write all your songs. You show up and you kind of sing on the CD. We'll manipulate it, and then you go out and we'll play a track behind you while you pretend to sing. and
we're not all Milli Vanilli here,
right? And we'll put millions behind you, and we'll use you up, and then we'll toss you out when we're done.
Yeah,
that happens a lot,
especially the women. I would argue that really happens to the women. If you're a pretty face, it can get sold. The second you're 27, like a model, we'll kick you to the curb. I think the women really get the short change on that. It's easy to put a pretty face on a cover. Once it's not pretty anymore, we're on to the next 18-year-old. Sorry, but that's I hate that. And I hate that, but it's true.
I hate it.
I love great music, not necessarily the packaged product.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of these people like that, these pop stars too, you got 5, 6, 12, 20 people in a room all writing one song to make it as perfect as possible, and then that's what gets marketed to these people. And that's, I think, part of why TikTok is so huge, and music on TikTok, because you're able to create something.
So naturally, who's going to ruin it?
Well, corporations
and Congress. Who else?
Congress. Yeah. What they need to do is not ban it, because I understand the banning of free speech.
It's going to get rejected by the court.
What they can do is say no communist affiliated company no country that's communist can have affiliations with a you can't have ownership by communism.
I know what you're saying, but you know what? How about Congress pass a law that they can't buy our debt or can't buy our farmland? If you're so concerned about the Chinese,
there's a billion things they can do.
Exactly. So just count on.
But yeah, if they could figure out how to control the action without banning the speech,
what they're doing is they're trying to pressure the Chinese to divest of it. That's the whole point of this.
That is. But they could do it in a pen stroke if they wanted to say no company can have ties to the Chinese government.
Yeah, do they though? I mean, aren't they owned
TikTok
by a board of directors though? I mean, I don't know.
No, they. I think they're in the same building as the headquarters is in the same building as the Communist Party.
Well, I mean, I don't trust our government with data any more than I trust theirs. So
that's true.
I'm not 100.
They're collecting data on all of us.
I'm not apologizing for Putin or the Chinese. But
I'd rather live here than there.
I agree there. All right, Jay. Speaking of living here,
yes.
That old guy screaming last week. Let me ask you just a kind of dumb question.
Okay.
State of the Unions. I've watched them since President Reagan.
Yeah.
And I honestly can't recall very many. I really don't.
No.
And maybe President Bush W. after 9/11, maybe I recall that a little bit. I remember Trump's first joint session speech, but I don't really recall his. The only thing I recall was the award to Rush Limbaugh.
That Nancy Pelosi ripping up the speech behind him.
And President Obama couldn't tell you a word.
No.
President Clinton couldn't tell you a word. They kind of just are there now, and I always viewed them as. All right, we're all going to pretend we like each other for an hour.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to, divorce court or whatever afterward. What the hell did we eyewitness last week?
Oh, boy.
Give me a multiple choice guess.
That was a disaster.
Of what we eyewitnessed. What was that? And why was the media so happy with... I mean, Joe Scarborough practically humped his chair afterward. What was the purpose of that?
Yeah, I don't know. When the speech was done, didn't Joe Scarborough get up and start singing "The Boys Are Back in Town"?
I don't know. He did something like that. Ladies on The View were all needed fans, and Democrats in the chamber were chanting 4 more years.
4 more years of what?
What? I'm just... Was the bar set for Joe Biden so low that he just had... Because he looked like he was hyped up on, a couple Red Bulls or some
Adderall
like that.
Or something, yeah.
Was the bar okay? He didn't fall on his face. We got through it. Was that the celebration? Because you can't get behind a whole lot about what he said.
No. It was all about his energy level. Oh, look at him. He's a virile young man. He's
all right.
He's poised to run the next 4 years.
I was fooled by that.
I know.
But I looked at it like and I called it the beginning of his campaign. I mean, was the because here's the thing. Biden had been sending out feelers, or his people, whoever is really the president.
Yeah.
We're going to go after Nikki Haley voters, and Biden was elected to be the adult in the room, and we're going to blah, blah, blah. They were all last weekend before this, before Super Tuesday, when it was obvious it was going to be him and Trump. Haley was going to lose. She was going to get out of there. And the speech was the opposite of any of that. No one could possibly have read that or listened to that. And if you didn't like Joe Biden, how could you like him after that speech? What was there that was there to grab onto? Pretty much nothing. Was the speech aimed at Dems that hey, I'm here, I'm fighting, you're not replacing me? Was it to fire up the electorate? Was it to get fundraising? I mean, I don't know what do you think the thinking was, if any?
I think if they pumped him up enough so that he could get through that speech and not shake hands with the air or, stand there and go, let me see what they wrote for me here or something like that, that's a win. And that proves, well, it doesn't prove, but it gives them the ability to talk about how he has the mental capacity to run the country for the next 4 years. If there had been a disaster on that stage, it had been all over.
It might have been.
But because
Bill O'Reilly and a few other people made that point that if he can't get through this, he can't go on.
Right.
I don't know how true that is. Probably. I think Dems still want to replace him. They don't know when and how.
Right.
But here, maybe they're taking my advice. Maybe they're just going to let him lose.
Yeah.
And focus everywhere else, because I'm going to get to the latest round of polls just in a second. I just have fun looking at the polls. I don't know why. I just do. And whoever's running RFK's campaign, I want to give a shout out to, because when you float vice presidential candidates, and I'm going to tell you, Robert Kennedy has done more interviews in the last 2 days than any candidate I've seen in the longest time. It totally got him on television.
Absolutely.
I think they were all trial balloons.
Yeah.
He's floating names out there to get a buzz, to get people talking about him, and it totally worked, because he even hoodwinked me. He was on with Neil Cavuto, and I was tuning in. He got me hooked. So...
I mean, do you actually think if he picked Jesse Ventura, that would be a good thing for his campaign?
No, because Jesse can't play second fiddle to somebody,
Right.
and RFK and him really disagree, particularly on COVID.
Yeah.
Really disagree with each other. Now, they have the same attitude,
Yes.
but they have different views on a lot of things. And I would say RFK swung to the right while Jesse swung to the left. I can't see Jesse being a subordinate to someone. I don't see Veep working. The Aaron Rodgers thing was funny. I wonder if the Jets have a clause in his contract that allows him to campaign during the week. But I mean, it was smart to create some buzz, and then all of a sudden, now he has an announcement he's making, and he's got everybody focused on this March whatever date. That's part of his ballot access problem, which I want to touch on when we touch on mail-in and early voting, like we're going to talk about for most of the show. But again, do you think the president missed an opportunity? Is there an opportunity for him? Can he move the ball at all?
Yes. Downward.
I'm gonna say he literally, there was one word he said that I actually got encouraged by.
Yes.
And a few days later he disavowed it. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to hurt him beyond belief.
Yeah. I agree.
When what's her name?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah.
Yelled out Laken Riley's name.
Yeah.
First off, he butches the
Lincoln
name.
Riley.
Whatever. Okay, we know what he meant. Right. I don't care so much about that. But he said an illegal. Yeah. And he said it 2 more times.
He did.
All of a sudden, CNN and MSNBC get a hold of that.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, and when I heard illegal, I went, And Biden had been putting out feelers. Maybe I'll do something executively, even though I claimed I couldn't do that a month ago.
Yeah.
Not only did he back off of it, he's now backed off doing anything executively.
Yes.
Now, that tells me that they're as tone deaf as I thought they were.
Yes.
I really thought that there was I haven't heard a Democrat say that since, goodness gracious, Zell Miller. I haven't heard it in forever. They're very touchy on what words they use.
Yeah.
And for him to say that and then back down was just, Then they tried to do damage control. His deputy press secretary said, "Oh no, he didn't." Tried to parse it, which is the dumbest thing you can do in that situation.
Stupid.
You can't play both sides.
No.
All you do is piss off everyone. It's like Israel and Gaza. You've got to pick a side. You can't play both ways. And so I just went,
No, in that situation, here's what you have to do. You look straight at the camera and you point your finger right at the camera and you go, yes, I said it and I meant it.
Yeah, I mean,
back off.
It would have actually, I think he actually would have come across in charge and much better. And to back off that was just, I'll tell you, this
weakness.
This Laken Riley case is not going away. This could be Willie Horton. This could be something that really resonates because I can see the ads right now.
Yeah.
Playing and the pictures of the inner cities right now, and you listen to Biden and the Dems, they have no solution. They have no answers. It's just more of the same. We're not going to do anything. We don't care. So I don't know. I was baffled. But I got to tell you what I was more baffled at. Boy, the Republicans, I'll tell you what. It's kind of like watching that Robert Hur testimony the other day. Why do Republicans get in their own way?
Yeah.
When you have a special counsel that basically calls the president guilty in an elderly old geezer who doesn't know what day it is, you just let that slide.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I just wish I knew what happened when the cameras weren't there, because I get the feeling that they'd all act differently. But it's like you don't have to say anything more than that. You know what you do? You get her to say it 100 times.
Yeah.
But the Republicans just can't get their foot out of their mouths. And I don't know if it's the cameras or if so-and-so's angling for higher office. But, the poor lady who did the response, Republicans have got to start focusing here. And I hate to, it sounds weird to say this, but Donald Trump resonates very, very well with people.
Yes.
And why does he do it?
Yeah.
Okay. You know why he does it. I don't have to explain it. You watch him and you get it. Why don't people follow that model? Trump does not mince words.
Right.
He does not sugarcoat things. He doesn't BS people. Some people don't like that. I understand that. But you've got to stay up. Republicans have this so won if they don't get in their own way. And you've got immigration, the economy, energy. You got those three issues where it's 60-30 in favor of Republicans. Meaning, if you do nothing, okay, you're fine.
Right.
So if you're going to do something, you know what I would have done? I'd have brought those executive orders out that Biden reversed of Trump on the border. I would have read them, given them the number, shown the American people where they can go read it. This is what the president did right here. And that's one by one by one. That could have been the entire speech.
Yeah.
You didn't need anything more than that. That would have been remembered. Not crying like you're selling Girl Scout cookies. No offense, but I don't
like
think
Girl
that's
Scout
effective.
cookies.
Right? But I don't think that's effective.
Yes. It was a little odd. It's not that the content of her speech was bad. What she said was okay.
The content wasn't.
When you're changing facial expressions and emotions, like you just kind of turn it on and turn it off, it's a little weird.
Cut one, cut two. That's what it felt like. I'm not saying she's insincere. I'm just saying, like you said, well, that's what we remember. I barely remember what she said.
Yeah.
Another missed opportunity. Just millions of people watching, and another Republicans, all they had to do was hit an infield single, and they pop to the catcher. They can screw this up, Jay.
Yeah.
They can screw it up. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now, I'm used to a well-oiled Democrat machine that seems to know what to campaign on. They've done all the research, that seems to know who to rile up, what angle to take, that seems to be able to, it's a lot like the Republicans are a lot like the Vikings, where even when they're winning a game, they allow the opposition to stay close enough to make it interesting at the end.
yeah.
They don't ever put something away. The Democrats this year are, they're a mess. They think that abortion is going to win the day for them. They think that, and they think that's going to be their saving grace. That and MAGA's bad.
January 6th,
Yeah.
defending democracy, blah, blah, blah.
None of those things are polling well, but yet they're still sticking close enough because the Republicans can't put it away.
Well, I'm of two minds on that. Okay, because this gets into what we're talking about here, the mail-in ballots and the early voting.
Yeah.
When I go back to 2022, and you say, okay, well, why didn't Republicans do better? Why did they, Because my take is that the red states got redder,
Yeah.
and the purple states didn't really tip like some thought they would, including me. Yeah. Now, my analysis of it at first was, okay, abortion probably affected some of the governor's races.
Yep.
I thought Republican candidates everywhere fumbled the issue.
Yep.
No more here than in Minnesota. Republicans do not know how to go on the offensive on that issue. I don't understand why. It's not that hard, but for some reason, they always are playing defense. Now, is that true? Sure. Probably to a certain extent. I don't think abortion played in the state and federal elections very much. In the House and Senate races, I don't think abortion played much. I think what played was the early voting, the mail-in voting, the organization, and the Republicans just sort of sitting back thinking it would just fix itself and not learning the lessons from 2020.
Right.
Now, could I be wrong on that analysis? Sure. I could be. But when I looked at something like the Oz-Fetterman race,
Yes.
and you sat there and watched Fetterman pull a Biden on the stage, you think, how did that guy win? Well, do you know that before that debate, 30% of the people of the state of Pennsylvania had already voted?
Mm-hmm.
And who overwhelmingly did they vote for?
Fetterman.
So is it a shock then that he wins the race 49.6 to 49.4?
Right.
Is that really a super big shock?
No. When you have...
But when it happened, the polls are going toward Oz. Yeah, the people who show up on election day.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who voted for it was already in the books.
I know.
Before that happened. So I don't think it was saving democracy. And I don't think that that's resonating because Joe Biden's trying to kick everybody off the ballot but himself.
Yeah.
And that goes against everything. I think the sham of prosecuting President Trump, which is falling apart everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Half the case in Georgia just got dismissed yesterday.
Yeah.
Is also kind of, I think people have taken a second look at January 6th.
They need to, now that all that footage is being
And
released.
there still isn't all released. The January 6th committee, which prevented certain people from testifying and all that. It was a committee with a predetermined outcome. I think
hid hours upon hours, tens of thousands of hours of video.
Yeah,
I mean, it was inaccessible to people.
I think it is. I think that stuff is not resonating the way it was either, and I think they don't know what to do. I think they thought Donald Trump would be in jail by now.
Right.
And they don't know how to go after him. But the early mail-in voting still just really, really is worrisome. And because you sit here and this whole new batch of polls came out. I just am having fun with it.
Yes.
Because 3 states are really concerning me. One is Nevada, the other is Arizona, and the other is Michigan.
Right.
Now, why do these 3 states concern me so much? There are other swing states too, but Pennsylvania has Republicans leading the legislature. They have a Republican Secretary of State. Wisconsin has a Republican legislature that has let all the COVID rules now have all subsided. So there's still a Democratic governor and Secretary of State there, so you have to kind of watch that. But I think those states will be more. I think you will see a reduction in states. Ron Johnson got reelected, while Tony Evers did too. So maybe it was a good year for incumbents there. I don't know, but it's kind of weird how the state. That's the bellwether state right now. Wisconsin is what Ohio and Florida used to be. But if you look at a state like Nevada is a state where Republicans have underperformed for whatever reason. I honestly thought Trump would win that state both times.
Yes.
And he lost, and I'm using air quotes, by 0.2%. I know Governor Lombardi was able to win last year, or in 2022, but the Senate seat did not flip there, and a lot of people thought it would. The latest polling out of there, Joe Biden has not led a poll in that state since July of 2023. This is according to 270towin.com.
Yeah.
I don't know who. Hang on a second. Okay. I'll give you an Emerson College poll. This is the most recent.
Okay.
After the State of the Union. Trump 46, Biden 40.
Okay.
When you put Robert Kennedy on the ballot, Trump lead widens to 10. And you're seeing where the Kennedy vote is going.
Right.
This is 1992-esque, Jay.
Yes.
This is where it's kind of going. Even though it's, Kennedy's giving a middle finger to people too, but it's...
And when you look at Jill Stein and you
Cornel
look at Cornel West, those aren't going to take away from Trump.
Right. And I'll tell you what, they're going to get on the ballot in Nevada.
Yes.
Nevada is one of the easier states with the signatures to get on.
Right.
They have a later date to submit that.
Yeah.
All 3 will be on the ballot there. All 5
Yes.
will be on the ballot. Here's the issue, though, in Nevada. Nevada is a state where you automatically get a mail-in vote
right.
or ballot. You get it sent to you. And we should explain that's very different than an absentee ballot,
yes,
which you have to personally ask for. Say, hey, I'm going to be deer hunting on Election Day. Can you send me a ballot? You have to personally do that. So those two things aren't the same. So you wonder, and Governor Lombardi tried to put some kiboshes on that and roll that back in 2023, and he was stopped by the Democratic legislature there. He proposed voter ID. He proposed deadlines to this. They've had an issue with an increase in mail-in balloting, but a decrease in rejected ballots, which is kind of strange. You'd think more would bring more rejections. So that was stymied last year. So it's a state that you really have to wonder, how's that going to end there? Jay, how do you see Nevada? That's a state that I have been waiting. It has not gone Republican since Bush in 2004. Every year it is a nail-biting state, but it's one of those states, somehow the Dems pull it out 49-48.
5 days, 6 days later when the ballots come in. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, there's a deadline. I don't think that's respected too much.
No, it's not. You
could even call it a border state, which...
Yeah, in some ways. It is pretty close.
You ever been to Las Vegas? There's a lot of people I'm not sure are citizens working in there. So...
Yeah, that is true as well.
Jobs.
Yes. Yeah, I can see your point. Can they produce enough mail-in ballots to overcome a 10-point lead? That's a question, because that's a big lead. That's not within the margin of error, and that's why I feel a little better about it. But I remember after the last election, it was Steven Crowder, I believe, that he did some research, and he actually went out and he and his team took photos of some of the addresses where these ballots were supposedly from. Some of them were vacant lots. Some of them were, I think they weren't necessarily homes.
Right. But that's part of the problem. Why are we verifying the ballot after the fact?
Right.
After the vote's cast.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Shouldn't we be doing that first?
We have nothing in our Constitution to go back and change an election, even if it was fraudulent, after it happens and it's certified.
Yeah.
It has to be done on the front end. And we're not doing that. We're checking it on the back end like gangbusters, but we're not doing anything on the front end to make sure that what goes in is good.
Well, then you add to it, Nevada's also a state with same-day voter registration. And so you have people showing up election day, registering, and then voting. You've got that on top of it.
Absolutely you do.
You know, I got to say this, too. I think the Trump campaign is quietly prepping for this.
Yeah.
2020, they were out there saying, don't go vote mail. You vote on election day.
Right.
They're not saying that anymore.
That's good.
I think they get it. But Trump can't micromanage 50 states. He has to some degree, rely on the apparatus around him. He can't.
Right.
It's not possible to micromanage it. So Republican Party of Nevada, I mean, I went on their website the other day. There's nothing about early voting. There is nothing about, there's a link to register.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's nothing about, you get that ballot and you make sure your neighbor gets that ballot and you make sure your mom in the nursing home gets that ballot.
Yeah.
You make, it's not that single-minded focus that it is on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, the Democrats are all about you vote. The moment you're able to, you go vote. And that keeps up through election day.
That's their
concentrate on election day.
Their whole
that's
game
it.
Plan is to just get you to vote 9 times. I mean, I'm being a little facetious there, but I mean, it's. I don't know. It's still a major concern of mine is that, that the Republicans are just still not ready for this.
Right.
But what do you think they are or aren't? Or does it matter the state? Or what do you think?
Well, of course it matters by state. I mean, the Democrats are not going to win in Florida. They're not going to win in Oklahoma.
The Republicans are making the rules in Florida, though.
Right.
That's part of it. A lot of early voting in Florida, but it's done the right way.
Right.
Same thing in Texas. I mean, it's... Okay. Let me hold that thought, Jay.
Yeah.
I want to move to Arizona because here's another state I'm concerned about.
Okay.
This is another state where the Twins are packing for spring training and they're still counting votes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what's going on. And you know what I really hate? What I really hate is being called an election denier.
Yes.
I think I am due when Arizona decides the majority in the Senate, when they decide possibly who the president of the United States is, I'm sorry, I've got a right to scrutinize their system.
Absolutely.
And how is it that Florida, a state 3 times the size, is done counting votes at 11:45 on election night, and St. Patrick's Day, they're still counting votes in Arizona? What is the problem in that state? And what are they doing to fix it? I mean, we went through this with the Kristen Sinema McSally race in 18.
Yep.
Of course, who ended up winning in the end? Oh, just imagine.
Right. Right.
A few votes somehow were found. Okay, we went through this in 2020.
With Carrie Lake and
that was in 22. But we went through it in 2020
yeah.
when Trump was leading the entire way. He's leading for days afterward. He's leading in the polls. And when everything closes, all of a sudden 99% of the votes in, and all of a sudden it changes.
Yeah.
So
How does that work?
I don't understand. And again, it's another state where, okay, I'm going to have fun with the polls.
Yeah.
Bloomberg Morning Consult. I don't know who they are, but they have the latest poll as of 3/13. Trump 49, Biden 43.
6 points. That's good.
Add Robert Kennedy,
Yes.
Cornel West, and Jill Stein. Trump lead widens to 9 in Arizona.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you look at that and you go, okay, well, you ought to be in really good shape. Well, judging by the last couple rounds in Arizona, combined with the governor there, who used to be the Secretary of State, combined with the border crossings, and I'm nervous about Arizona. I mean, Trump should win it.
At
But-
9 points, he should.
But why in the back of my head am I like, what if I be shocked on Thanksgiving somebody takes the lead? You know, I mean, just what? But I think they owe an explanation. And here's the thing. In 2022, a majority of people did not vote on election day. A majority. Okay, now there was a time where that was 5%, 10%, 15%. Now it's half.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally changing everything about elections.
Arizona, do you know, is that same day registration?
I
Is
don't know that.
okay.
No. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably didn't used to be, but probably
Right.
is now.
And it's been a really long time. Can you, for an election judge,
Yeah.
what the dangers were of having that same day registration?
The same thing as the voting. You are verifying their registration after they voted.
Yeah.
There used to be a provisional ballot
Right.
years ago. They've done away with that now.
Yes.
You used. If I filled one out one time, I remember it was 2002. I had moved, or I was living in Robbinsdale, and I moved that summer or something, and I forgot to. I was like 22 years old. I didn't really realize what I had to do. Showed up on election day, and my dad had told me to bring you had to bring like a bill from home or something, and
Yep.
so, excuse me, but I cast a provisional ballot
Right.
that day.
And now those provisional ballots are actually looked at, and they can be tossed, or they, are not tossed, but they can be made invalid if they're not verified.
Back then,
or-
it was a paper ballot too. It was not a machine ballot,
right.
so it was very different. That's true, and that's different. I think that you're registering somebody to vote on election day. They don't need an ID. They don't need to verify that they're 18. That's the other thing too. Family of 4 can show up,
Yeah.
and they can say, "Oh, we don't have ID. Well, here's where we live. Here's our water bill." But
Right.
I don't know if you're 18. Some 18-year-olds look 31, and
Yeah.
I don't. So there's that. There's also vouching, which
Yeah.
is probably, this is what I testified to at the legislature back in 2009. I told the story where there was a guy who I later found out was a DFL field officer. Outside, 101 feet away, from, you're not supposed to have campaign stuff within 100 feet of a polling place.
Yeah.
And he was vouching to vote for anybody who would vote for Al Franken. Literally, that was overheard by me and a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Tom Emmer, actually, for the first time, because he was the ranking member of the whatever committee was doing the voter ID. And his people, or whoever, he was in the legislature then, they called me and said, "You got to come to this hearing, such and such a date." And however I got there. And so I told that story at a government operations committee or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
But, so yeah, I mean that stuff happens. I mean, I don't know how prevalent that is. I was in Minneapolis. I made the mistake, a humongous mistake of signing up to be a election judge where Republicans didn't have any people. Of course, that was in Minneapolis. So it's actually a paid position, by the way. I got like $10 an hour to do it or something like that. That was the Coleman Franken race. That was 2008.
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago now. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of questionable things. And I mean, is it really that difficult to go register to vote? I mean, you actually can do it online now. If you do is type in your driver's license number and you can register to vote online now. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's such a big deal. But I will say this about same-day registration. And I've told this story before, but when Jesse Ventura ran for governor, we brought him up earlier. When I went to go vote, there was me and like 6 old ladies in line. Huh. And in line to register to vote was probably 30 people. Hmm. And those were Jesse voters.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't have won he couldn't win today because of the mail-in ballots. He would never win.
Right.
It's really hard for a third-party candidate to do it. So I shouldn't say never, but I mean, he'd have to look at what President Trump had to do on election day to make up for it. I mean, you got to do 2-1. And I don't know how a third-party candidate could do that. But anyhow, and again, I wanted to bring up Arizona too because it's another state where everybody will be on the ballot. Kennedy will be on the ballot. Stein will be on the ballot. That's another state where the deadline is later and the signatures will be easier to get. They actually need about 1 million. Robert Kennedy said he needed about 1.1 million signatures to get on all 50 states, which I think is a mistake by him. I don't know why he needs to be on the ballot in Wyoming I don't know why. I don't know why third-party candidates focus on that. Uh-huh. It's just pointless to do that, I think, but that's just me. That's all he's going to spend his time doing, which I think is a mistake. But the other state to bring up, too, out of this is Michigan. Mm-hmm. You know, there's been a big deal about the uncommitted vote and the whole – well, Michigan is a state, too, that economically is lagging behind. It seems like they've been in a recession for 50 years in that state.
Yeah,
it just seems like they're always behind the rest of the country. But it's another state that I'm nervous about. Because the Democrats run the big cities, which they do in most places, but I believe Detroit is one of those cities that is pretty lax on, illegals can vote in the city races, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that it's limited to that.
I mean, how do you separate that out on a ballot?
I could be wrong. Yeah, I could be wrong. But it's a very corrupt town.
Yeah.
A bankrupt town. And you're going to see, again, a state there where everyone's on the ballot again. And but it's another state I'm nervous about. Again, the Democrats, for the most part, run that government. They run the Secretary of State's office. They have a George Soros-funded Secretary of State there. Mm-hmm. I believe, again, Whitmer's reelection against Tudor Dixon was largely due to the influx of they had, I believe it was 61% in Michigan that voted either early or by mail. Wow. Right. And so I think that led to like the poll inaccuracy a little bit in that state. So I think it could be really critical again, worrying about, do the Republicans in Michigan have their act together? And there's an open Senate seat there that I think is quietly going to be a very, very close race there because I just, again, think that's, as well as Tammy Baldwin's seat in Wisconsin, I think they're going to be quietly very, very competitive. I mean, nobody is talking about them, but I actually think that it's going to be a real problem. I want to have more fun with the polls here. Okay. Michigan, Quinnipiac, which is funny because President Trump has been struggling in that poll.
Yes.
For some reason, I don't know if it's how they do their polls. They do registered voters, which instead of likely voters, I don't know about Michigan's same-day registration, but I think we're so early from the election that likely voters is again, a little bit more of a good barometer. But they show Trump 48, Biden 45 in Michigan. Okay. Add Stein, West, Kennedy. Okay. Trump's lead widens to 6.
Huh. Which is outside of the
margin of error by about 2.5 points.
Yeah.
Cornell West gets 4%.
Really?
Stein gets 4%. Probably
because of
that's where the uncommitted
Muslim
vote
votes.
is going. Kennedy's sitting at 9. So, but like I said, in Michigan, they'll be on the ballot. Other states like Pennsylvania, I think Robert Kennedy might get on the ballot there, but I don't think Stein and West are going to.
Right.
So that's a little higher threshold. All going back to trying to get Ralph Nader off the ballot. You know, when Ed Rendell was the governor there, they gamed the system so that it made it harder for a third party candidate to get it. But I'm going to tell you something. Michigan is a state where I don't understand what happened in 2020 either. I don't get how all of a sudden Biden's losing for 2 days and then all of a sudden comes out with a win. I still have not heard a satisfactory explanation for that. And I fear, again, that could repeat itself, if Republicans don't have their act together.
Right.
So, those 3 states, Jay, I mean, again, like I said, a majority of people, I have no reason to believe that it's going to be different in 2024 than it was in 2022.
Right.
That you're going to see that percentage come out early, however early that is. It may be the day before.
Right.
Okay. It may be the Friday before. I confess I've done it. 2022, I voted the Friday before the election. I had to have the day off, so I went down to City Hall and I voted. So I guess I'm as guilty as anybody, but that is going to be something that is really going to have to be watched. And I've seen very few polls break that down so far.
Yeah.
When do you intend to vote? And that's just so critical.
So we looked at these 3 states. Yeah. Now, there are, 8 battleground states, 19 counties that it really comes down to, right? So how many of these does Trump actually need to secure a win?
Well, I think, boy, that is really a hard question to answer. I think there's...
I mean, like, take Georgia right now. He's ahead by a lot.
Yeah, he is. And, you've got the Democratic parts, Fulton County, and a couple other counties around the bigger cities. The swing part is the suburbs around Atlanta and around the other Augusta and some of the other big cities. The rural part, he'll win 70-10.
Yeah.
So there's 3 counties to watch in that state. There's going to be, I would say, the suburbs of Atlanta will probably make or break the state. You look at a state like Arizona, the same thing. It'll be. Think of it like look around Phoenix. Think of like the Maple Grove, the
Scottsdale.
Anoka.
You got flat. Yeah.
Some of the cities actually run red over there, sort of depending on some of the cities' demographics and stuff are a little weird in Arizona. They got a lot of new residents. They gained a lot of residents from the past, say, 10 years.
Right.
So it's a different state than 2016, say, So, I mean, you take Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, and I think those 3 states were separated by 31,000 votes, the 3 of them combined in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, so it would take nothing to flip them, but is it going to happen?
Right.
I'm with you on Georgia. I think that it was funny how the White House is making a push for Georgia right now, but I think they're going to back off of it after a while. Biden's want to lose Pennsylvania. He can't lose that state. There is no scenario he wins if he loses Pennsylvania. Because right now, if you take the states Trump won
Yeah.
in 16 and in 20, he's really not in danger of losing any of them.
Right.
That puts him at 235. Georgia puts him at 251. Pennsylvania puts him at 271. It's already over.
Yeah.
So Biden's Pennsylvania cannot fall. That's the blue wall
But
state.
Trump can lose Pennsylvania and
can-
pick up Colorado or pick up
Michigan,
Wisconsin.
Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, any of them he can.
Right.
I would say Wisconsin is the Ohio of 20 years ago. Wisconsin is the most evenly divided state you're going to find
Yeah.
right now. Ohio and Florida are gone, I think. I think they are red. And it just goes to show how the White House put out this little 2-week tour that Biden's going to, quote, all the swing states.
Right.
And Ohio and Florida aren't on there. So it just goes to show.
Right.
They put New Hampshire on there, which I called a few weeks ago, saying, watch the polls there.
Yeah.
It's going to switch, just like Maine did. But we're going to take a little peek, Jay, at Wisconsin real quick.
Okay.
Where the hell is it? Hold on.
Okay, you find that. But yeah, I mean, it really does come down to a very small subset of counties, which, I mean, when you look at it and you break it down that much, I mean, not that you can ignore other places because they can flip to some degree, but you know, it's specifically those counties where you really got to put a lot of time, money, and energy.
Well, and I would also argue one thing I think that you're going to see, especially the Trump side do, is go into, I would argue they need to go into red and blue areas.
Yeah.
But they're going to go into the red areas and try to get more red votes.
Right.
You know, they know Biden's not going to stop in, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Well, Trump can stop there and get 200 more votes by going into a favorable place for him.
Right.
I think he should campaign in the cities. He should campaign right outside an encampment.
Yeah.
So this is Joe Biden's America right here, and that's what he should do. Now, I'm going to go with Emerson College again.
Okay.
Because this is the latest poll. This is about 10 days ago here. So they haven't done one since the State of the Union.
Okay.
But they have Trump up 45-42 in Wisconsin. And that's a 3-point lead. He maintains a 3-point lead when you add everybody. So Robert Kennedy is not swaying that race. When it's a 2-person race, it's 45-42. When you add everybody, it's 42-39. According to that poll. Bloomberg has it a little bit differently. 46-42 Trump.
Yeah.
You add everybody in there. I didn't research how easy it is to get on Wisconsin's ballot.
Yeah.
But when you add Kennedy, West, and Stein, Trump's lead widens to 8. So that being the bellwether of bellwethers.
Yeah.
President Trump's in good position right now.
Right.
In that state. And that state's a little more restrictive on the mail-in ballots and stuff with the Wisconsin legislature. And Governor Walker as well set some rules that, and then the COVID rules lapsed under after 2022.
Okay.
So you may see something different now going forward in Wisconsin. But I would call Trump the heavy favorite there, although after 2022, I don't know how to gauge it. I really don't. So, but again, the point I think to understand is that it is amazing in our lifetime, Jay, how much voting has changed, and
yes,
that your get out the vote, your ground game, that last 96 hours, it's more like last 40 days, and I'm also somebody, this is another thing that's bothering me, is that we have not changed the calendar. I mean, look, for example, the Democrats are holding their convention. The last day of their convention is August 22nd.
Yeah.
You start voting here in Minnesota on September 25th.
That's not much
5
time.
weeks.
Yeah.
There'll be no debates until then, if there will be at all. I don't think President Biden can get away with not debating, and I think Robert Kennedy might qualify to, and Biden's not going to be able to get out of it then.
Right.
Because he can't just go, I'm not going to lower myself to Trump. He can't say that
when there's two
people there. And again, it's a disadvantage for him because Kennedy and Trump will both be attacking Biden. It'd be again, it's 1992 again. But again, how many people's votes are cast? I mean, it was estimated that the first debate in 2020, which I believe was the first Monday in October, something like 15% of the country had already voted, which is absurd.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. Why aren't the debates in August?
They should be.
I mean, if you could have one a month, one in August, one September, one October. Why couldn't you do that?
Yeah.
But it's got to change. I mean, Minnesota has a primary in August, and then 5 weeks later, that's no time for a campaign. You don't even get your matching funds until for some campaigns to the end of August.
Right.
It's just stupid. And I really dislike it because, again, what it does to other options on the ballot. I mean, how do you run a third-party campaign and run a mail-in ballot campaign at the same time? It's crazy. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you another state that really has a lot of mail-in ballots, and it's too bad because I really think Trump's got a shot in this state, and that's Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado's another universal mail-in ballots in Colorado. And I think that is going to make us – I just have a gut feeling that's going to make it hard for President Trump to flip that state. And I think he could, considering, there's the backlash of trying to kick him off the ballot. Biden's polling in the 30s in that state. Mm-hmm. It's a state he could do something in.
It's another state, though, that has kind of gone nuts. Not as bad as us, but, it's –
But there's a backlash against that. I think there's a backlash going on.
Their sanctuary policies have made it so that Denver is.
Yeah, and I would say something too. Yeah. One of the things when you're looking, and this is where the mainstream media, in my opinion, is really showing who they really are here. Yeah. Do you know that it has been over? It's been over 6 weeks. Since we have seen, it's been since mid-January, since anyone has polled Virginia, New Hampshire, Colorado, New Mexico, all of these states that lean blue, they're a little blue, light blue, 50 to 44, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Nobody's polling them. All of a sudden, a Maine poll comes out that shows Trump up 6, and whoa, what's that? And now they're not polling these light blue states. Right. In fact, KSTP, Channel 5, Survey USA, they're the only people polling in Minnesota. And their poll had Biden up 3 with him sitting at a 41% approval rating in this state. So why aren't those states being polled like the other ones are being polled every 3 days there's a poll in Pennsylvania. Why aren't those states being polled? And my guess is that those states are closer than anybody thinks they are.
Right.
So, I mean, the White House going to New Hampshire tells you all you need to know about where New Hampshire is. Since when was that state in jeopardy?
Right.
So I think you're going to see some polls that will get people talking very soon.
Well, and just watching where the president goes. Like you say, going to New Hampshire, they're starting to play defense, which is not a good sign.
They're only playing defense. Trump won 25 states. Biden's not campaigning in any of them. He's conceding them.
Yeah.
He's only trying to play defense where he has to go.
Right.
So, I mean...
Well, and the Democrats really do have an electoral advantage when you look at the West Coast and the East Coast, and
it depends how you look at it. They have both sides have 175, 180 votes they're not losing.
Right.
right now. There's nobody's going to pull a Ronald Reagan here.
Right.
But when you look at the states that are in, let's say there's 10 states in play.
Yeah.
They were all won by Joe Biden last time.
Yeah.
Every one of them. So that's the nature of the race right now. And and I'll tell you something else. Here's another, you want to know another tidbit? I wonder if John Tester's campaign has checked this out yet. Yeah. Latest poll out of Montana, 53-29 Trump. Biden's approval rating 31%. Now, how does John Tester, who's another Amy Klobuchar, he's votes with Chuck Schumer 100% of the time, and then somehow has a reputation as a moderate. How in the world does he survive that race?
Yeah, well, again, I mean, there are parts of Montana that are blue.
There are a handful of areas, not too many. But
and so the battle, again, I think kind of comes into the areas surrounding those blue areas. And they do happen to be the more populated areas of Montana.
Yes, but in Montana, the big cities are not 85-15.
Right.
They're more like 61-39.
Yeah.
I don't know where Tester can't win just in the cities in Montana. He has to get rural.
He has to, but and it's probably somewhat like Minnesota used to be, where you had your Iron Range, or you had
North Dakota used to be when Ken Conrad and Byron Dorgan were there. Yeah, there used to be something like that. I don't think that exists anymore.
No.
So how he survives that race, I don't know. I mean, like I said, abandon Biden and put all your money into the Democratic Senatorial Committee is, Montana, Arizona, Wisconsin,
Ohio.
Yeah, are they going to prop up Sherrod Brown?
No. He doesn't have a shot. I don't know how he has a shot.
I don't know.
Other than being a billion-year incumbent.
I don't know. Even that, I don't think. I just, I heard the same thing when J.D. Vance ran against Tim Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan was a pretty formidable opponent, and Vance won. Oh, he's the Trump guy, but he won handily there. And I don't know. I can't see that happening either. I don't think Ohio's going to be much of a contest. So I don't see how Sherrod Brown overcome. I think Trump will win Ohio by double digits. That's my prediction. So,
well, obviously, I mean, the fact that it took Biden a year to get to East Palestine when he's running a campaign and ignored it, and Trump went, 3 weeks after and brought water? Yeah. And he wasn't running at the time? Well, he was and wasn't, but
I don't know what he was doing. Now, Jay, let me ask you: do you vote on election day every time?
I usually do, and part of the reason is I like to take my youngest with me. I've always taken my kids with me so that they can see me vote, try to get them excited about it, And so there's a reason that I do it. We've got to teach our kids to do it. I think we can do that at home, though, too. That we can sit down with them at the dinner table, explain to them, here's what I'm doing, here's what these candidates stand for.
So do they let you take your kid up to the...
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen anybody do that. So
I've always done it. Yeah, you just...
Maybe I have. I just
sticks
don't pay
right with
attention.
me.
Yeah.
So I always used to go with my mom. Yeah. When she voted for Reagan, I remember that...
I remember... Yeah. I remember voting for Clinton while my mom voted for Perot. I remember that.
I voted for Perot. Absolutely.
96. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But my mom said, well, meet me. This is before cell phones, and I was going to North Hennepin Community College. So I ran home and right after class, and we went up to, where did we vote back then? I don't even remember. But I can't remember. There's some old elementary school that's now closed.
Yeah.
So, that was I didn't know what to do when I got there. And she tried to verbally explain it, but I didn't get it till I got it. Then I got it.
Right.
So, it's not hard. Do you think we should go back to paper ballots?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean,
It is a tough one.
I think they're probably a safer bet. I mean, as long as you've got poll challengers and you've got all that kind of stuff set
Back to
up.
hanging chads and all that.
I know. I also think if you're able to toughen up the laws and you make sure that the machines are not online where they can be hacked, and you run things on the blockchain rather than just www.voteinmichigan.com, as long as that's not your server. I think it can be made more secure. Just we need to take those precautions, but I think that Democrats especially are not interested in it, and Republicans.
And I don't understand that. I mean, why wouldn't these are people who say that Russia interfered with the election in 2016, yet they don't care about election security. Which is it?
Yeah, you got me. It's.
I don't know. I will say this much. I mean, I have voted absentee before, but for a reason. There have been times where I've been gone when I used to travel for a living, that I was gone. I vote in every primary, pretty much.
Yeah.
I pretty much vote all the time. It's not always in person. I was kind of impressed when I went just last week. I voted at elementary school by my place, and I was impressed with the turnout that day.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be the only one. I voted at like 1 p.m, but
yeah.
I didn't think there'd be a big deal about Biden and Trump.
Yeah.
But people showed up. They're taking it serious.
And then, on the contrary, I pull into the parking lot. There's somebody pulling out of the parking lot or getting into their car as I pull up, and I'm the only person in the building that's not working there. So it's...
all right, well... that has happened once or twice to me. I'm trying to think of when that was that I was like the 29th voter. And I don't remember, but it must have been a primary.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you what. You want to talk about another thing that needs reform? How about primaries? Boy, do they need some reform.
Yeah.
And the answer isn't ranked choice voting. That's not the answer.
Absolutely
but
not.
I mean, primaries. Do you think that you should have to register as a party?
I am kind of split on that. I don't necessarily like where, I can go vote for either party. I can either vote for someone if there's a hot race in my party, or I can go mess with the other party's elections, because that's a knife that cuts both ways. On the other hand, I don't really like, being pigeonholed either, and them telling me, well, this is what you're registered as, or being identified as that.
I certainly don't want any junk email. But let me ask you this. I mean, is it what's a better system, I guess, is my question. Because my problem with not registering, is that I think Republicans should decide the Republican candidate.
Right.
Democrats should decide the Democratic candidate. The general election, to me, is for the crossover.
Yeah.
It's like even independent voters. Why are you voting if, why are you picking who the Democratic or Republican nominee is?
Right.
So I guess I don't want to be in a database somewhere with my name attached to something. But I have to ask myself, what's a better system? When I went and voted last week, I remember they gave me this iPad and said, okay, which ballot do you want? Because I blurted it out loud. I didn't know I was supposed to Luckily, the lady next to me was the same as me because I just went there to vote for Trump. I didn't care. I was like, I want the Republican one. She goes, okay, well, you're supposed to tap, right? Oh, okay. But I mean, is you mentioned screwing with the. I mean, some candidates have made that their strategy to go screw with the party.
Well,
Nikki Haley being the latest, but she's not the only one who's done this.
No.
I've seen this happen a million times where, somebody gets a bunch of voters who aren't part of the party, but they're picking the candidate.
Right.
So, I mean, is that fair?
No. But it's really, for the number of people that actually do that and try to sway it, I don't know that it really works. And
it's possible.
If people understood the importance of primaries, you would never be voting for the lesser of two evils in a general election. If people actually learned about the candidate, showed up, voted for the candidate that they actually liked,
Yeah, they think it's a horse race. Their job's to pick a winner.
Right.
Not to pick. Yeah, I've said this to people too, because I do get a lot of I don't like Biden or Trump. I'm like, well, look, first off, there's 50 other things on your ballot.
Yeah.
Educate yourself on what those are.
Right.
And the other thing I always say is if you go and you can leave something blank if you don't know, but if you go and you research everything and you vote for the best person for the job, then you've done your job as a voter.
Yeah.
This isn't, you're not trying to pick a winner here.
Right.
So I do agree with that, though. I mean, I was at caucus a few times, and somebody be like, I like this person, but I don't think he'll win.
So?
I'm like, well, nobody knows who you're voting for, dude. What does it matter? But they'd ask me what to do. Well, vote your conscience, huh? To tell you who to vote for. It's not my role as a caucus convener.
I mean, that's how we have so many squishy Republicans in the Minnesota Senate and in the Minnesota House, is because they keep letting these people through the primary process rather than somebody stepping up, primarying them, and then putting a stronger candidate in.
Well, I mean, part of that too, I hate saying this, but part of that too is, especially in Congress, is the money aspect. I mean, when you divert from them, and the Democrats do this more than Republicans do.
Yeah.
The Republicans do it. You're going to vote for these 5 things, or we're not going to support your reelection.
Right.
And then you spend your whole time raising $100 here, $500 there. It's a trap the way they have the money.
Oh, it's awful.
It's so bad the way they have the money. I mean, it's. I hate saying it, but Ross Perot always said, "Follow the money. You just follow the money.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find it. You follow the money." And I didn't believe. When I was young, I wanted to believe everything I was taught to believe. I wanted to have confidence in our institutions, Jay. I wanted to have the goodness of people is always kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
And I so don't think that anymore. I'm so the 100% the opposite. I hear something, I assume the opposite is true. There's a handful of people, and we've talked about them, that I get news from that I trust.
Right.
And that's about all. Everybody else is just...
Yeah,
I don't want to hear it.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you look at some of these news people, and I won't take forever for that with this, but Chris Cuomo, the latest example, who on CNN, super left, right? Just spouts the Democrat talking points, all of this. Now he's on this news station.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but by the way, he's in the media while his brother is a governor. That's
right.
A slight conflict of interest.
A little bit.
Sorry. I mean...
Somebody else should be interviewing him.
Well...
Not you.
But I mean, how objective are you going to be covering your brother? Sorry.
Right.
Joe Scarborough's having breakfast at the White House once every 2 weeks. Well, how objective of a journalist is he now?
Somebody that claims to be a conservative. He's about as conservative as
He's as conservative as Ilhan Omar.
Mao
He's
Zedong.
He's as left as anybody.
You know, what's her name? Is she on CNN or MSNBC? S.E. Cupp used to be on the Blaze as a
CNN.
libertarian.
Yeah.
Used to be on the Blaze as a libertarian. Now she's
Trump derangement
might as
syndrome.
be
She has
Joy Reid
Trump
Jr.
derangement syndrome is what she has. Yeah, I used to really like her, but she is just gone insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
I'm sorry. Do people really have? I've never had that kind of flip in my life where I'm conservative and then I'm wildly liberal, or I'm wildly liberal and then I'm super conservative.
Here's my question.
My values have remained throughout my life.
Here's my question.
Yes.
You don't want to vote for Donald Trump, that's fine. Why do you change your views on every single thing? You know,
Yeah.
why is that?
It just makes me think it's false. You're getting a paycheck. You're spouting the company line. What they want you to say, you're willing to say because you don't value yourself enough to stand for
It's funny
something.
you bring up Chris Cuomo because I like him more and more. And I don't know who's the real Chris Cuomo.
Exactly.
But go ahead. Yeah, I know.
That's
he's
it.
on
That's
News
my
Nation
point.
now is what.
And he was just talking about how the rest of the media, not him, of course, the rest of the media hates Tucker because he's more popular than them. You know, but if you caught him on CNN, it would be, oh, Tucker's the devil.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and he does those segments with Tucker now and with Bill O'Reilly. They talk all the time. Bill O'Reilly and him do 3 segments a week.
Yeah.
That they, they disagree sometimes, but it's always neither one of them are afraid to go on each other's show or anything. It's nothing like that. But yeah, who's the real Chris Cuomo? I have no idea. You know what I wonder? I wonder if he. This is what I think. If he kind of has his own views, it feels like with his last name he can't say them.
Right.
I wonder if there's a little bit of that in him.
Maybe.
Like, you know what? I don't really agree with what my dad said about this, but I got a job because of my last name, partly. I'm not going to rock the boat. You know, now that he's not working there, he's saying what he really thinks. I mean, could that be the truth?
I suppose so.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know.
But it just makes me think all of it's entertainment, all of it's false, all
Yeah.
of it is just a bunch of baloney.
Well, and I come back to somebody who doesn't like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson used to work at CNN.
Yeah. So did Glenn Beck.
So did Lou Dobbs.
Yeah.
Nobody was complaining about that. Bob Novak. I mean, they all worked at CNN for years.
Right.
Why? They were saying the same things then that they are now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gotten a little worse today, but I mean, you know, yeah, I don't understand that. I don't understand why now it's like, they're so like I had a conversation with somebody who's going to remain nameless, who didn't believe me, who's on the other side politically, didn't believe me that they all used to work at CNN. I had to go through and say, no, here, see, look, you know, Lou Dobbs used to host CNN Business. I remember it. It was on at 4 in the afternoon before he jumped to Fox.
Yeah.
Glenn Beck was on there for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And Tucker was on that round table, that Crossfire show forever. He was on there for probably 10 years. What? They were at CNN? Because in their mind, CNN is the liberal channel.
Yeah.
You know, they don't allow those voices there. And I thought to myself, how wrong is that?
That's very wrong. News should not be slanted one way or another.
Or if it
should be the truth.
Or if it's going to be, we ought to know what we're getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if Joe Scarborough's having breakfast with the Bidens, I want that disclosed so I know what BS I'm watching.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't masquerade as a journalist and then do that. I mean, Tucker Carlson doesn't call himself a journalist.
No.
Even though he actually does more journalism, I think that he gets credit for.
Oh, absolutely.
But, you know, so I think journalism's dead. I don't think it exists anymore.
It's entertainment.
It's about ratings.
Yeah. It's all
eyeballs.
entertainment.
So if news becomes entertainment, where do we get news? Where's that happen?
Yeah, it's dying or dead. I don't know. I mean, again, you've got a couple of outlets. You know,
you got very few. I mean, you really have to sift through what you listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, even, I don't want to say stuff, quote, on our side, but there's people, quote, on our side I don't like either.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's kind of, yeah. Where's my remote? Flip the channel.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I just, one thing I do, just to bring up one more thing, Jay, about the media, is one thing that worries me is living in different worlds than the people next door to you. I mean, if I don't watch CNN, I don't watch MSNBC. You couldn't get me to watch that if you hung me by a yard arm. Yet, nightly news, I don't know who's on it. I have no idea.
Right.
Who's on? Tom Brokaw. I don't have any clue. Okay, so the people who are watching that, compared to what I'm listening, it's like we're in two different worlds. How do we reconcile those two things?
You can't unless you're able to prove, I think, that they've been duped. But
they're not willing to be, because the people, with all due respect, especially people on the left, don't look at the news skeptically the way I do and the way you do.
Right.
I hear the news spout out something. I'm like, highly unlikely I'm being told the whole truth here.
Right.
Probably not. They spout out BS about the bipartisan immigration bill. But if you watch the nightly news, they're not doing any actual journalism on it. They're just talking about the politics.
Yeah.
But if you actually go and study the bill like you and I do, but the person watching the nightly news isn't doing.
Oh, no. They're just taking their word for it.
They're just repeating what they hear.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I know nobody under 65 watches it, but let me tell you something, they do vote.
Yeah, they do. But what did I see the other day? It's a very high percentage of people under the age of 30, 32% maybe, that get their news from TikTok. And so that's a problem. I saw a car. I was out driving, and there was a lady.
Do you think that's accurate?
I don't know if it is, but it might be. It might be more.
How young people define news. I mean, if you're 22, you didn't live through the era you and I lived through. When I say when the pollsters say news, they're thinking, sit in front of the TV and what transition has been made. The young people say news. They say what pops up on their cell phone.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So you have at least 32% of people that are under 30 that are just getting their news from their phone, and it might not be accurate. I was out driving, saw a lady with a bumper sticker that said, Comedy Central is my news channel, Fox News is my comedy channel. And this is the problem, that we're actually believing that we're getting news when we're getting entertainment.
Yeah. So who's that? Is that the Ducky Show or something? Daily Show? Is that still around?
Yeah, that's still around.
There's
some guy named Trevor Noah or something, I think.
I have no
Actually,
idea.
Jon Stewart's supposed to come back for election season and take it over. So, yeah.
Stewart, I actually found funny. This is the problem with late night, because I hate late night.
Oh yeah,
it's
horrible.
Awful. But I used to love it. I used to love late night TV. Stewart, I could tolerate. He's the last one that I could. Like Letterman. I knew Letterman was left, but he was funny.
He was awesome. Yeah.
He was great. I mean, he just
Yeah.
the top, ticks, but it was not so in your face.
Right.
And so it just, I don't know. I don't know what do you think late night has the influence it used to?
No, I don't think so. I think
who hosts? I don't know who's on anything.
I mean, Gutfeld's show is number one in that time. So it's
Gutfeld's funny. He's pretty funny. He could have his own. I mean,
he does.
He does, but I mean, he could host him doing a stand-up routine. On the Jay Leno show or something, and that would be great. That would be awesome. He could do it for sure.
Yeah.
These other ones, PU. Just PU. I mean, I just don't. That's just not funny. And here's the other thing too. Saturday Night Live, is that still around?
Yeah.
Is it? Because God, they used to do the best election stuff.
Yeah.
It's like they got to bring Dana Carvey back or something. I don't know what else. Phil Hartman, I guess, is dead, but I mean, I just miss I miss the good, funny, lighthearted stuff.
See, here's what they need to do, and you can take this idea. Don't even give me credit. I don't care, SNL. Like in baseball, there's always an old timers game, right? What they need to do is for Saturday Night Live have like an old timers special where they come in and do all new material. You got Aykroyd, you got Dana Carvey, you got
Eddie Murphy,
Eddie Murphy, you got David Spade, Adam
Sadler,
Sadler. You got all that.
Can you imagine
coming back?
You know what I'd love to see nowadays with the trans stuff? It's Pat. Bring back It's Pat. I don't know if they could do that now.
Yeah, they might not be able to do that.
But see, that's the problem. You got to push that button.
Yeah,
was what made it funny,
right?
So I don't know. I would love. Get me to watch it. I haven't watched it. The last time I really remember watching SNL, I liked Daryl Hammond a lot.
Yeah,
and I liked Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
And I liked the last one that I remember. Daryl Hammond was playing President Carter.
Yeah. President
Carter made this visit to Cuba way back when.
Yeah.
And Ferrell was playing Castro. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell is pretending to speak Spanish, so he has an interpreter. And he asked Carter, Daryl Hammond.
Yeah.
I don't remember. When were you president of the United States? And Hammond gives an answer impersonating Carter.
Yeah.
And Will, as Castro, goes, during that Iranian crisis, the hostage crisis, right?
Yeah.
And so there was this whole back and forth making fun of Carter's presidency.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, stagflation. And Will Ferrell goes, we don't even get that here in Cuba. It was just hilarious. It was. Look, I don't know if it's on YouTube or something, but Daryl Hammond and Will Ferrell. I'm sorry, not Ferrell. Look up that skit. It's just great, hilarious. So, but that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Phil Hartman being Clinton at McDonald's. You got to eat that. You got to eat those fries over there. You got to eat that chicken nugget here. Let me help you. I mean, it just I totally just miss that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dan Aykroyd did the best Bob Dole I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd. But I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the whole gang get back to Chris Farley was always one of my favorites. Although they overused the falling through the table stuff a little too much, but he was just great.
Yeah.
Just hilarious. Just too bad with his life and all that. But anyhow, Jay, getting back to this this mail-in ballot stuff. How does it play out in 2024? I mean, what do you think happens as far as whether the Republicans have their act together? Do you think it's a deciding factor? Is Biden too far down where
it's kind of looking that way? I mean, it's going to be hard to overcome when you're already outside of the margin of error. It's going to be hard in the closer states. Maybe if it's 3-4 points, they might be able to swing that. But when you're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10 points, that's hard to overcome. That's a lot of ballots.
Yeah, and I mean, I am worried that Trump's going to have to win those states by that margin to overcome.
Yeah,
I'm worried about it though.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't help but be concerned that snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I'm just really worried about it.
Yeah. Well, how many of these states have changed their laws or let the COVID laws expire, then creating a different scenario than we saw 4 years ago.
Well,
or 2 years ago.
Well, again, a handful, some of the deep blue states have changed stuff permanently.
Yeah, and some of them expanded.
Washington and Oregon, I know, have expanded. Actually, Utah is one of the states that has really pumped the mail-in balloting. I don't know why. I don't know why either. I don't know if they want more Mormons to vote or why. I have no clue. It just doesn't make. Again, an absentee ballot or something has its place, but why you have Utah's universal mail-in balloting, and I have no clue why. I mean, the Democrat hasn't been elected there since LBJ. I don't know why they have it. So, I will say one thing. If you look at like the red states, it's run a lot better than it is the blue states, but the thought of people not voting on election day, that you're voting, and what it does to the down the ballot races, which is another thing that is worrisome to me.
Yeah.
No one seems to care about. No one seems to care about what we always talked about, the cities, the counties, the school boards, even the legislature.
By the time they get their election campaigns up and running,
some
people
of them
have already voted.
Sign up in July. And you're voting in September. I mean, it's no time to do anything. I just don't like it. I just,
but it's here. So
well, look, that's the thing, and it's you can either be Florida about it, and the Republicans can win, and then make the rules and run things just like they did in Georgia. That's one of the reasons I think Georgia's going to be much better in 2020 is the Governor Kemp and the Republican legislature got together and they ironed out the rules for we're not going to have another 2020 in this state.
Yeah.
And so I think that President Trump's in good shape there. But
Arizona has not fixed those things.
Arizona has not fixed it. Nevada has fixed it maybe 50%. And so there's still in the back of my mind, I still have this worry that we're going to get it's just going to be mayhem on Election Day. And then there's the October surprise. I don't know what that is. I think it'll be a hit on Trump. But, because, look, if he's up by this in October, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
And something's going to happen. Independence Day is going to happen, in this country, I think. So we'll see. But got me worried.
Yes.
You just got me worried, period. So, all right. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
That wasn't as negative of a show as we've been doing. Was it? Was that as negative as normal?
No, it was some good analysis.
I thought it was too, and I thought it's a worthwhile subject because we talk about 230 days until I saw something like that on Jesse Waters' show. I don't know what it's called, but you're 231 days out. Well, actually, can I correct you? We're more like 194. Just saying, that it's not quite that much.
Yeah.
So,
well,
here's another. I want to ask you one more thing, Jay. So when do the mail-in ballots get counted? See, this is another issue.
Right. They're supposed to be counted with everything, right?
Well, remember,
it depends on the state.
Florida, for example, counted the mail-in ballots first.
Right.
But
not before Election Day, right?
No, when the polls closed, the mail-in ballots, boom, appeared.
Yep.
Because I remember Biden being up like 63-35, and I'm going, oh boy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
right,
it completely changed. Supposedly, Michigan, Pennsylvania counted theirs last.
Right.
That's what they claim. I don't buy that. I don't buy that they didn't count any before Election Day.
Yeah.
That doesn't pass the smell test,
right.
Especially when you can early vote. Well, those votes were submitted.
Yeah.
I think they're full of crap. But, so that was another thing. State to state, are we going to see results going up and down one way? And all the so-called experts trying to figure it out?
Yeah, it's bad.
All right. Let's just forget about it for a little while. My throat's about to give out, Jay. Styling and profiling, jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. Jason Bradley, take it away so I can stop talking.
All right. Consider it a done deal. Oh, our election system. It's supposed to be this sacred institution that we have here in this country where a common man can get elected. Well, we're way past that. If we're talking about a presidential race, you got to have millions of dollars. For most people, a Senate race is probably out of reach too. You might stand a little bit of a shot as a common person running for House, and definitely in your local and state races, you definitely can compete. But it just kind of reinforces this corruption or culture of corruption that we have, and we need to take an honest look at this, and we need to fix the system from the inside out. The rot goes so deep. I mean, our system was created in such a way that a farmer could run for president, and really that was the intent, that a farmer run for president, and then when they're done, go back home. Well, we don't see that at all. People don't go back home. I mean, Barack Obama, first president ever that decided to stay in Washington, D.C., set up an office, and is continuing to have influence into the current administration. I mean, this is getting to the point where it's elites that are making the rules for all of us, and they come in and they have this agenda, and it's the advisors to the president that are often deciding what gets talked about, what gets pushed. You've got the special interest groups that are submitting bills with their lobbying efforts to Congress. And it happens at the federal level. It happens at the state level. You've got the special interest groups that maybe aren't lobbying at the local level, but they're pushing things. And they go to groups like having a brain fart. But the League of Minnesota Cities, where they go to groups like that, and the League of Minnesota Cities starts pushing things on the cities and making it sound like a great thing, and all these cities want to be in the cool club, so they take up the things, because you've got these administrative people at the local level that have decided, I want to get that raise. I want to get that bonus. I want to be a city that's on the cutting edge, without ever asking if it's a good idea. So we really do need to look at it from the ground up. We need to look at the primary process. We need to look at the election laws. I'm sorry, but a Secretary of State, while they oversee state elections, cannot be making laws on how to run elections. That comes from the legislature. And any place where that has happened, that needs to be pushed and overturned. Forget the money. Forget the power in the Secretary of State position. You, as a legislature, have more power to make law. And when a Secretary of State does something that's outside of their constitutional bounds, that should go directly to the state Supreme Court. And if it doesn't get the traction you need, it should be appealed to a federal court. That's just, but we don't do it. And we allow these bad things to sit on the books, and we don't want to pressure. And for some reason, we can't seem to come up with. That's another thing they should ban, is calling anything an act. Everything, every law, every bill that comes before Congress should just be HR 7436. That HR 3248. SF 2430. Whatever it is. Because then they can't use that. All that is when they go, it's the blah, blah, blah act, the legacy amendment, all of that stuff really is just used as a marketing tool to sway people in the way that they want it to be. We have to stop having the mindset of a consumer, and we have to start having the mindset of an employer. These people work for us, and if they don't do what we want them to do, you're fired. That's the way it should work. It should not. They should be coming to us, not up on some high horse. I'm the incumbent. I've done all these great things, and my opponent is terrible. And they should have to come to us actually interviewing to keep their job every time that they're running for office again. They should have to come to us to prove what they've done, to prove what they still have to do, that they have any gas left in the tank, so that they're not just hanging around and collecting a check and some fancy benefits. No, we have created an elite class of people that sit there in their ivory tower and try to tell the rest of us how to live. They put regulations on us that they don't have to live by. They force us to buy things that they don't have to purchase. They force us to live in a way that we don't fully agree with. So why not? Why not make them come back to us and interview every 4 years? Why not put the magnifying glass to them? 2 years for some mayors and for House of Representatives. No, instead, because somebody's an incumbent, they seem to carry more weight. I'm sorry, that should almost be a reason why you need to be scrutinized even further. So until we fix our mindset, we're fighting an uphill battle. But that can be done by us getting in and making those changes now. The first thing to do, we've had the presidential primaries. That's spoken for in the state. What's not spoken for? We have another primary coming up. That is going to determine who's running for some of these state races. Who's running in some of these local races. And you have an opportunity to speak up and say, you know what, I will make the sacrifice for my children so that they can live in a city that is pro-freedom instead of creating a serfdom. I will put my hat in the ring. I will help somebody that is running. We as conservatives are so good at enjoying life and consuming the fruits of our labor that we've worked so hard to achieve. But there comes a time where we've got to set that aside and realize the time that we're in and how little time we have, and that the Constitution is hanging by a thread. And if we don't stand up, if we don't put our foot down, if we don't put some resistance, we can lose it all. And I know, I've said this how many times? 307? We've got to do something. And we can't sit back and just watch the whole thing go away and then hope to get it back when they've gone too far. They've gone too far. They've crossed my red line a number of times. The time is now. So get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Let's do something together. Let's change history. Let's together set out, blaze a trail, and do something different. The time is now. You have time to think about it, but not a whole lot. We've got to get moving. We've got to put our campaigns together. We've got to hit the ground running. It's up to you what kind of republic you want. That's right. So we're going to go and we're going to do our part. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.